Hi and welcome to Take Time to Create. So it's a pretty simple card and it's pretty fun to make. And the background is what we're going to start with, and that is with Yupo paper. Do you know what Yupo paper is? Let me show you. So this is Yupo paper. It is a synthetic tree-free paper, and it is made of 100% polypropylene, and it is so cool. Well, first of all, I like to say Yupo. It's a fun word. Try it. Yupo. And it just feels really, really soft. It feels so cool because it's plastic. It's a plastic paper, and it's pretty great. We're going to use Yupo paper, and we are going to create a background like this. And Yupo paper is fantastic for alcohol inks. So let me zoom in and we'll get a clean piece of paper and we'll do this. All right, it might be my imagination, but I think there are two sides. One side's a little smoother than the other. I don't know. Like I said, it's probably my imagination. To make a background that looks like this, we're going to use some alcohol markers. I wanted it to look like a clear blue sky, a winter day, and this is just like Colorado. We have bright blue skies in the middle of winter, and I love it. So this is what we're going to do. I pulled out all of my blue markers, and these are Prismacolor, and look at that. Isn't that quality taking care of my stuff? Sometimes things just happen. And I don't want to use the teal blue. I want to use the lighter blues and a little bit of dark, and not too light. And we're just going to mix some colors. I'm using the broadside, and this is blue slate. And I'm just going to scribble on, and I'm going to use true blue. Scribble, and I'm overlapping as I scribble, and I'm scribbling around. Now this piece of paper is actually a little bigger than what I need because things will run off on the edges. And so you want to make it just a little bit bigger. This is light blue. I'm just mixing some colors. I'm going to mix some in here. I'm going to grab the edges and mix it around. And I'm doing a little bit of a gradient, and I'm going to end with this aquamarine blue. And I'm just going to put this on the bottom. And you don't have to worry too much about being exact on this. And I'm just putting a little bit in the sky. Then what I do, very technical, I take a bottle of 91% isopropyl alcohol and a pipette, and I have a paper towel underneath. I straight out use the bottle. I just go right into the bottle and add drops. And we're just making things happen. We're just adding drops. You don't want to get too wet. You don't want to saturate too much. And then I don't like the harsh lines, so I just take my pipette and I kind of smear things around a little bit. I take a little extra droplet. I just like to have it blended a little better than what it does. And then I just take my paper towel and I just move things around. Now, I tend to overdo things a little bit. Now, when you're all done, let this dry. This is a little bit longer of a project because I don't like to heat this up with a heat tool because, well, it's plastic. So I just let this dry, and then I come back to it, and then I will be able to emboss on it the next day. Now, if you are impatient or you need to get your projects done right away, well, I'll show you what happens. We can do that. So it looks kind of pretty. If you have too much, then just dab it a little bit with your paper towel. If you're like, oh no, I put way too much on, it's fine. If you put way too much on, just dab it all off, and we're just gonna start over a little bit. Look at that. Oh look, I've got a little bit on there. It's fine. What we're gonna do is we're just gonna add a little bit more. There's not a lot of alcohol on here, so now it will let the marker show, but it'll blend a little bit because there is alcohol still on here. If you mop up all of the alcohol, your marker will work a little better. But since I didn't mop up all the water, or excuse me, I didn't mop up all of the alcohol, the alcohol fumes are getting to me. So it's not letting me draw too much, but just a little bit. I'm drawing a little bit. I'm gonna take my dark blue, add a little bit more. And I'm going to drop everything around. Look at this. This just makes a really cool background. Play with this. Use different colors. Use, you know, sometimes if you want to leave the edges, that looks really cool too. I'm in love with this. Synthetic paper is really cool. It's just something you should absolutely play around with. All right, got some things going on. Now, the question that I always get when I show them Yupo paper, they're like, well, why don't I heat it up with a heat tool? Now you can. Very carefully, you can heat this up with a heat tool. You want to be careful that when you heat it up with a heat tool that you don't blast your design away, because you know you are using with liquid and it's going to blast away. But let me show you what happens. Now maybe you want your design to blast away like that, and that's cool. So absolutely do that. But did you see how it was all waving? It was like a little wave. All right, now I'm gonna pause here and look. It's kind of cool at this stage. It's got some really cool textures. So absolutely, being very careful with a heat tool, absolutely. Let me show you what happens if you use too much of a heat tool. See how the edges curled? I know you're all wondering, what's gonna happen if you heat it up with a heat tool too much? Well, I'm gonna show you. Watch this. I'm gonna show you again. Watch what happens. We're gonna blast. If you're not careful, you're gonna melt the paper. This is just my entertainment for the day. All right, so I'm going to put this aside and let this dry fully, completely, without melting it. But that's exactly what happens if you're not careful. If you just let the Yupo paper just melt, if you're not very, very, very careful with your heat tool, you will melt it just like that. Maybe that's what you want to do. That's fun. Kind of makes a cool texture. So my sample here I did the other day, and it's ready to go. So I am going to slip it in this embossing folder from the Paper Studio, and it is these really cute snowflakes. Look at those. My friend gave me this. I love it. I love it. So I want to put the top of the paper. I want to have it bumpy this way, and I'm going to roll it through my little embossing machine. So I zipped it through my embossing machine. Anyway, you can see the pretty snowflakes. Isn't that pretty? Take an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, cut it in half, and then I folded it in half. So what we're going to do is stick this patterned piece of paper on the back, and then I need to trim this. So on that embossing folder, there's a little edge around the whole thing. So I'm just going to chop it. Be very careful with your fingers. So now it's all chopped and trimmed, and I don't measure. If you want to measure, go ahead. Seems like a lot of work to me. So I just trim it. I just chop until I like it. And I like it. Any pattern paper will do on the background. I wanted a green to go with the trees because the trees are green. I wanted to have a little bit of cohesiveness to the card. I don't always do that, but this time I'm trying to get all my colors together. And then you decide, do you want, you know, dark up there? I think it looks kind of like snow's coming down. I like that. Anything will work on the background, but use a smaller pattern. If you have a giant pattern, it will get covered up and you won't know what it is. So a smaller pattern on the back. So once you've decided on your background and your Yupo paper is already ready to go, nice and dry, then you want to die cut out some trees. I have these 3 little die cuts, and honestly I got these off of Wish. Yeah, so they weren't very expensive. They just took a month to get in. Very cute. Love them. If you don't have trees, just cut out triangles. Those will work just fine. Any trees will work. They don't have to be my cheapo Wish ones. Now, this green paper I had in my stash is a little bright for the background, so I want to dull it a little bit. So I'm taking some Distress ink, and this is in tea dye. And this may or may not be an old makeup brush. I don't know, I'll never tell, but it may or may not. And I'm just going to swirl it. I figured if it worked for makeup, it will work for applying product onto my paper. So it's not my face, oops, but it is a piece of paper and I think it works just fine. Use what you have, people. Use what you have. I don't have any of the blending tools, but I do have an old makeup brush. Now it looks a little more dull. It's aged a little bit and I like it much better. So let me do that to all 3 of them. Now it's time to assemble the card, and I'm just using a tape runner here. Stick it on there. It's a little bit, my scrap piece of paper that I had is a little bit smaller than my card. So what do when things don't quite match up? We trim them. Nobody's gonna know. I have 2 trees stuck down, and now time for the 3rd one. And they just go just like that. Ta-da! All right, so now we're going to add a little sentiment on the top, and this one I used, believe in the magic of the season. I have this set. Should I tell you where I got it? I got it from Wish. I'll tell you. The die cuts are great from Wish, and I have had no trouble, but sometimes the stamps aren't that great. They have a harder time stamping all the way. So just be aware of that, but you know, it's fine. It works. And I have Ranger archival ink that I'm going to stamp the sentiment. Make sure it's all nice and inked up, and I'm just going to set it down. Now be careful on the Yupo paper that you just set it straight down and hold it. You don't want to wiggle. It is a slidey, slippery paper, so just hold it and just be careful. And if it slides, well, that's okay. And just press down evenly. Let the ink transfer, have that even pressure, and hopefully it works out. If it doesn't, that's okay. The final detail that I like to do on these trees is add some stickles, just little dot stickles all over. And I'm using a turquoise blue. It kind of goes with the sky. It's the same color. And I'm using holly color, and that is red and green. And I'm just using some burgundy red as an accent to the red and green. And I just make little dots. I love stickles. I don't think I do many projects without stickles. Just dot around like it's, I don't know, lights on the tree or decorations or something. And there we go, a cute little card ready to go for Christmas. And this one would be an easy 1-2 assembly line, especially if you get a big piece of Yupo paper and you just do that technique over the whole thing right away, and you can have these done lickety-split. Give this video a thumbs up, subscribe to my channel. You can find me on Instagram and on Facebook, and you can find me on my blog. Thanks again, and I'll see you guys next time.